I feel privileged to be introducing our next speaker, Professor D. Balasubramanian. Professor D. Balasubramanian joined LVPEI's Professor Brian Holden Eye Research Center in 1998 after an illustrious scientific career, which included positions such as Director, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, and Professor in Dean, University of Hyderabad. He has received many awards from professional and institutional bodies. Notable among them are the Bhatnagar Award, Ranbaxy Award, Goel Award, and the FICCI Prizes of India, the third World Academy of Sciences Award for Basic Medical Sciences, and the TWAS Award for Science Diplomacy, the Kalinga Prize for the Popularization of Science in UNESCO. I'll just take pause here. Harshita, I think the papers have got exchanged. Sorry about that. So notable among them are the Bhatnagar Award, Ranbaxy Award, Goel Award, and FICCI Prizes of India, the World Academy of Sciences Award for Basic Medical Sciences, as well as for Science Diplomacy, also the Kalinga Prize for the Popularization of Science from UNESCO. In 2002, he was honored by the Government of India with the Padma Shri and knighted with the National Order of Merit from the President of France. He is an elected fellow of the Science Academies of India, the World Academy of Sciences Italy, the German Academy of Sciences Leopoldina, as well as the African Academy of Sciences. Professor Balasubramanian's research focuses on the biology of eye diseases. He has over 180 publications in national and international journals and has authored 3 books. In January 2016, he retired from the post of Research Director at Professor Brian Holden Eye Research Center and continues as a distinguished scientist there. May I please request our eminent speaker, Professor Balasubramanian, to come on to the dais. May I also request Arpita from Reagene to please come up on the stage.
Sir, please better,
I would now hand it over to Professor Balasubramanian to deliver his talk on birth and growth of India's youngest science, biotechnology. How did India become the global supplier of medicines and vaccines? Over to you, sir.
This you can keep somewhere.
Sure.
Friends, some of what I am going to talk about has been also already put together by my friend. Okay. You don't mind if I say that, Ramzami. But I want to give it in the somewhat of a longer background, because it was people like him who actually supported science, in particular biotechnology. Okay. And since many of you here are biotechnology students and experts, and many of you already have started enterprises and so on, I thought this may be a worthwhile thing to talk about. You notice by the time the colonial empires disappeared, at that time, Professor Utsa Patnaik of JNU made a calculation in which he pointed out that Britain alone, as a colonial empire of India, took away 45 trillion pounds. How did it do that? Taxing. Taxing on just about every possible thing. Many of you might even remember, or at least have heard of, what's called the Salt March. That was done by Mahatma Gandhi himself, and Utsa Patnaik looked at that and found that out. Okay. You notice Right now, these are all the various, what do I do? Yeah. And now India is a complete independent country. Next. So I wish to now, against this background, talk about the birth and growth of India's youngest science. There are two younger science in India. One is information technology and so on, and the other is birth and growth of the younger science, biotechnology. How did India become the global supplier of medicines and vaccines? This, I think, is an important question we need to ask. It's a 70-year story, 1950s, 60s, all the way now. In 1950s, smallpox vaccination, national malaria eradication program affected 300 million people right here in the country. And there were people who went across a 2,000 to 2,000 kilometer across India on a sustained campaign, and the disease was eliminated. This, I think, is a very important aspect to talk about in terms of biotechnology. And during the last few years alone, COVID has hit us. Professor Ramsamy just talked to you about how Serum Institute, right here in Hyderabad, for example, Bharat Biotech, Mahila Datmas and Biotechnology, and so on, also produce vaccines, not only for some of these diseases, but also right now, not only COVID, but also the Omicron variety and so on. How do I do that again? No. Yeah. 1960s, translational agriculture. This was another giant step that India had taken at that time. The yield after Professor M. Swaminathan of Chennai got together with Norman Borlaug. Again, look at the government's involvement in this. Dr. Swaminathan was able to actually import rice grains, wheat grains, and so on, after Dr. Norman Borlaug, who got the Nobel Prize for this, went and checked in Mexico. How do these farmers produce a small acres of land alone, was able to produce so much, and they found it is because of the specific biological aspects of the region. India is very close in its ecological and food-based situation. And the government of India at that time, the Minister of Agriculture was approached, and he said, let us now get some of these varieties of wheat, rice, and so on, so we can start putting together. And you notice how it has gone now. 1950-59, the food grain was 50.82, and it jumped up to 308 million tons, and now it's 316 million tons. India happens to be the largest exporter of rice and wheat, beating China, beating Southeast Asia, and so on. Not only that, sugarcane and oil seeds. These are, I think, important things we should be looking at. Why did this not work? Yeah. Not just that alone, the G.B. Pant University in Pantnagar, Agriculture University, was able to also get soybean, not all that, what shall I say, popular in several parts of India, but certainly in the northern Indian part and so on. And the production in 2006 was about 7.8, 7.1 million tons and so on. it has jumped up even more now. I think these are important things to think in terms of. What about the nutritional aspects? Here again, I think it's very important for us to understand how the nutrition got initiated in India. It was colonial at that time. It was actually there in the central Indian hills near Uttarakhand and so on. And that gave rise to the National Institute of Nutrition in 1969, 1970s. It is now part of the department of the NIN in Hyderabad, for example, which is one of the outstanding examples of that. And the effective translation, this is, I think, what is important for us to look. Effective translation of results of biochemistry and intermediate metabolism. This is what they used, and in particular, I think the nutritive values of Indian foods. How do we monitor the national diet and nutrition situation? How do we manage and prevent nutritional problems and work with the community? Today again, for example, in Hyderabad, it's not just NIN, but also we have ICRISAT, which is an international agency which has an outfit here in not too far away in Hyderabad, and they produce very important grain and so on. Here, for example, some of you just now had some biscuits and tea and coffee and so on, and you probably will also have a heart full of lunch. What is the cholesterol content in some of these foods? What's the defining protein, calorie, malnutrition? Evaluating traditional Indian foods. This is a book that's available, and its latest issue of this book, Nutritive Value of Indian Foods, has been put together by NIN in Karnataka, and it can be bought very easily. 1970s, again, the decade of translational nutrition. And who's the gentleman? Any of you know? Dr. Ramalinga Swami. He treated goiter and night blindness by giving iodized salt propagation. Today, any salt that you buy in India is iodized to a small extent. And vitamin A mega dose to treat night blindness. And this has been done across the country. There are three major organic chemists who were in pre-independent India. One is Professor D.R. Govindachari, second is Dr. K. Venkataraman, and third is Dr. Salimuzzaman Siddiqui. Govindachari was an outstanding organic chemist and biochemist. You notice he trained over 150 PhD students, and his laboratory still continues even after his unfortunate passing away, and they isolated and synthesized hundreds of molecules, each of which has a drug value. Likewise, Dr. Venkataraman, who used to be at one time the director of Central, the one in Pune. Yeah. Trained both organic chemists and chemical engineers, isolated and produced hundreds of dyes and resins. And Salimuzzaman, all these three were in Delhi. He isolated compounds from flowers, reserpine, plants, neem, and devised the indelible ink used by voters. Even today, when a few months from now you go to cast your vote in the local community and so on, you will find that indelible ink that is initiated and put into practice by Salimuzzaman Siddiqui. Pandit Nehru asked him at that time, "You have done so much here. You have also done quite a bit of organic and biochemistry and sociology and so on. I've already spoken to the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Why don't you go over there? After all, they are our neighboring nations. Go and set up their CSIR and Department of Atomic Energy and so on. He went over there and came back within a week. वहाँ साहब कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. I'm coming back. Just put me back into my CSIR lab, and that's what happened. Most important thing, again, it was the governmental issue that came out very important for the drug companies and so on. The revised Indian Patents Act. This, I think, is what gave rise to drugs in various companies and so on. They are no more dependent on drug imports. We just showed you some drugs that have been made by the three gentlemen over there. Cost of drugs and pharma are far lower in India than in other countries because we make them, meeting strictest quality standards, regardless of where you buy from, either imported from America or is it actually made here. And it has given employment to this 500,000 is no longer true. It's about 2.5 or 3 times more than that. And pharma industry grows remarkably. Healthcare now becomes accessible to many. Many states in India now give free healthcare to poor people who can't afford it. This is a very Gandhian concept. That's what Yusuf Hamid Asipla, he defied the international patents and sold anti-AIDS drugs for dead cheap prices across Africa. It's a Gandhian step. And Kiran Majumdar of Biocon, she produced recombinant insulin and sold it for 7 rupees per day for the needy across the world, not just in India alone. Likewise, I think there are people, our own Bharat Biotech, Krishna Yalla, has been able to do that by sending a very large amount of his vaccines and so on to across the world. It's also important for us to look at what the 1970s and 80s did. That's the birth of new biology labs and departments, including this university, where we are celebrating today and tomorrow the Aspire and related programs. Madurai Kamraj University, JNU Delhi, University of Hyderabad, Pune University, MSU in Baroda, Banaras Indian University in Banaras, UDSC, CCMB, NII, IMTech, and IIEM, which then became IICB, ICGEB, and so on. New biology captures India. That involves, what is this new biology already? rDNA technology, DNA fingerprinting, monoclonal antibody production, structural biology. You notice I talked about Venkataraman and Seshadri and so on. They had to do, they wanted to look at the structure of the molecule that they made. Okay, they had no NMR. They had no crystallography at that time. They had to do it in the classical old way. Today, many of you students who want to investigate and actually produce monoclonal antibodies or protein structure, DNA structure, and so on, you are able to use all technologies. That was not possible during those days. This is what the birth of new biology in India from 1970s to today happened. Drug design. One of the things that are actually being done right here in the University of Hyderabad, your Aspire program and TIE and so on, is drug design, bioinformatics. Again, you have a very good artificial intelligence group here. That therefore, it's possible to initiate and successfully produce bioinformatics, translational research. I think this is an area where universities like yours have been, as your Vice Chancellor pointed out, certainly is one where University of Hyderabad can take even further lead. All this is, how did it happen? Because there's one man, Dr. Varadarajan, who was at that time, I think, Ministry of Science and Technology chief. All this gentleman called Dr. S. Ramchandran. Ramchandran was at that time working in Bengal Chemicals in Calcutta. And what Dr. Varadarajan did was, look, I want you here. We're going to start a new initiative and a new department called DBT, Department of Biotechnology. And Ramchandran agreed, and he initiated all this thing that you are now enjoying, extramural grants, support to small biotech startups, worked with the Chief Secretary of Informatics in India, and that was the first email. I remember many of us, including me, as she pointed out, I did my PhD from Columbia University in New York, and I still had to type and print using an old-fashioned printer and submit it to the professor. You don't do that anymore. Not only do you use today's technology, but you also use the first email, and your emails are, any of you does not have an email ID? See, I did not. My first email came because of Dr. Ramchandran. So we did not know what to do at that time. He said, Nani, you don't have to print it out and so on. You get yourself a small computer. That became available for us. Human resource development, hands-on workshops. All this was done. Courses to support scientific exchanges. New R&D institutions. All the DBT institutes came thanks to Dr. Ramchandran. And expenditure, his budget, from 200 million rupees to current notice jumped up by about easily 20% more, 20 times more. Currently, it's the largest supporter of bio R&D. At the same time, it's not just rice, wheat, and agriculture, but it is also the bovine and the ovine decade, the white revolution. Just like India is today the world's largest rice producer and wheat producer, India now turns out to be the fifth in the world with 1.6 million tons of eggs per annum. Specific pathogen-free eggs. When you go and buy eggs in the market, these are all guaranteed to be pathogen-free. And look at the amount of milk that has been now produced. If there's a small company at that time initiated by Amul, now all the milk that you buy is actually Amul initiated. How did DBT initiate itself? As I said, it's from S. Ramchandran. He was there from 1986 for several years until 1992, and he was succeeded by Dr. Chittaranjan Bhatia, an agronomist, agricultural biochemist. He brought in agricultural biotechnology also into the arms of DBT. 1995, he went back after 2 years, back to BARC. Then this lady, Manju Sharma, I think she really was an outstanding lady who was able to generate a lot of things during her 9-year stay as the secretary of DBT, and followed by Dr. M.K. Bhan and Dr. Vijay Raghavan and Dr. Renu Sarup. Now we have Rajesh Gokhale, who I think did he come to the university at all or not yet? I think I should initiate him, call him and so on, because I think that's important. Chittaranjan Bhatia, as I said, he came from Bombay with focus on sustainable agriculture for enhanced income, quality of life and welfare of farmers, and became the second secretary. But as I said, a single lady, Dr. Manju Sharma, she's still there in, she's now in Lucknow, and she is the president of the current president of the Third Academy, National, what is it called? FNASC, National Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Already at DBT since that time, okay, she was succeeded by, and this man did so much for India. Maharaj Kishan Bhandar, the man who succeeded Manju Sharma, had shaped biomedical research results into real-life programs. These, I think, are important. Again, translation is such an important thing, because there's not just discovery or invention, but also producing on into the real-life programs. Childhood health, vaccine for the childhood health, he initiated. He, along with his student, Dr. Gagandeep Kang, was she here? Gagandeep, please call people like them, okay? She's the first woman FRS. She was given Royal Society's fellowship just for her work on this connection, vaccine development and production, direct connection between clinical center, CMC, Vellore, where Gagandeep works, TBT, industry, and transfer it to vaccines, for example, Bharat Biotech and so on. Initiated Biotechnology Industry Research, BIRAC, of which you people right here at the University of Hyderabad enjoy support from. Dr. Bhan initiated BIRAC, and that turned out to be one of the most successful initiatives. Dr. Bhan unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Vijay Raghavan took over from N.K. Bhan in 2013, an expert in the area of developmental biology and genetics. Many of you actually use Drosophila melanogaster as the model organism to look at the entire biology, genetics, and so on. He was also principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister of India. And he was followed by Dr. Renu Sarup, and she established also Biotech Industry Research Association, or BIRAC, which funds startup biotech companies. And currently, Dr. Rajesh Gokhale, and I think you should try and also initiate by calling him and showing him what your Aspire is like and so on. That will be very important for you. Look at the kind of vaccine that India has produced in 1990s to today. Diphtheria, BCG, MMR, all these vaccines underused. Right here in Hyderabad, Dr. Varaprasad Reddy, Shanta Biotechnics, he produced the first hepatitis B and C vaccines in collaboration with Dr. G. Ramareddy in the US and myself in CCMP, and sold it for 100 rupees per shot as opposed to 900. The vaccines are across the world for liver problems. And Krishna Ayala, Bharat Biotech, he has been here, right? Okay, all right. Who again has produced vaccines against hepatitis C, rotavirus, Zika virus, polio, and most recently for typhoid, called Typax, cleared for use by WHO for across the world. And again, at affordable prices for the poorest of the poor. Currently, Bharat Biotech manufactures vaccines against COVID and also its later Omicron situation. These are all the stars of biotechnology in India. Oh, sorry. Go back. Dr. Anjali Reddy. And that is Anu Acharya. She started something called, and they successful, Genome Patri. It's like 23. Okay, I look at all the 23 important genes associated with your genome, and I'll give you and couple of, this is Ranbaxy that our Ramsamy spoke about, Ratala, Mahima Datla, and so on. Okay. What were the top 15 pharmaceutical companies in India? Notice Sun Pharma, Aurobindo, Lupin, Cipla, and so on. This is in 2018-19. What is it today? Can you get that? No, today. Yeah. 1890 was the next one. Here, you get the next one? No? Yeah. No. No. Okay, doesn't matter, but I don't want to waste time on that. Some notable products that they make: statins, ranitidine, GM-CSF, streptokinase, and so on. Notice they all have grown. I also want to tell you why Hyderabad. Because we are at a very special position here. And why Hyderabad? Notice all these are in place with the 1990s. Okay, scientists are now willing to walk the talk. How did we start? How did the government employees in? Biotech Park, see, incubator facilities, PPP models and pilot models, Biotech Park. Again, I don't know how many of you have gone to see the Biotech Park, which is what is called the Genome Valley. And the Genome Valley, where Faba is and many of these companies are, okay, is a place where our current industries minister is very happy that not only there is a Genome Valley, he also started something called the Pharma Valley. The reason why it's called the Genome Valley is because our Srila Bide, who was the first Secretary of Industries in India, she said, all our Indians go over to America and they are near San Francisco and around Sundar Pichai and people like that. Why should they all be just going to that little place which they call what value was that? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to call this the Genome Valley here. It was taken on further after she left as the Industries Minister, was taken up by B.P. Acharya, who's still there today, and he is not as a secretary, but certainly. But they initiated, look at all that they done. What's the market size like? You notice the market breakup by revenues alone has gone up remarkably. Translational research. This, I think, is the most important aspect that we must think in terms of. Translational research is where what the community or the people who need desire to have. So there must be a connect between the lab bench to the bedside, or the bedside from the community to the lab bench. So this can be a entire circle of the translational research. This is one of the reasons why I moved from CCMB not to come to the University of Hyderabad, where actually I was supposed to join as a vice chancellor, but I went to LVPEI because that's precisely where the community comes to the bedside, because they have a need or they have a desire that their eyes must be checked and whatever corrections has to be made or anything. And we initiated translational research there at that time, and today it's even using CRISPR-Cas9. That is today's technology in genetics and biotechnology, and use that. So this connectivity is, I think, what is very important for University of Hyderabad again. Bedside to lab bench, batch to bedside, and community and so on. This, I think, is by and large what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Professor, for the very informative talk.
Okay, good.
I think we all would agree that your passion and love for science really resonated with us through your talk. I would now check if anybody has any questions that you would ask. You would like to ask, Professor, here? Okay, I think I would ask one. Because you've really seen the transformation of science over the period of years, what has been your favorite technology that you think has impacted the people the most?
Certainly, I think artificial intelligence is one. Okay, translation by using the latest methods of biology and molecular biology and genetics. Okay, now if CCMB had not initiated mRNA technology to look at patients and decide, I think that would have been very difficult without that. So I think since you're all biology-based students and so on, I think it is important that such issues are taken right away. For example, Omicron. How many of you had known that this new mutant? Or should you be looking for newer things and so forth and be prepared for that? This, I think, is the important thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'll ask you to wait for a second. If I could please request Professor Shivakumar, Dean SLS, to come up on the stage and felicitate Professor. Thank you so much, Professor Balasubramanian.